And it's 6:05 on February 29th, and this is the re-kickoff of the sustainability program. And we're glad to have Jessica Leclerc, the Senior Program Director, with us, who's going to start us with what is sustainability all about? Why is it a positive thing for a community? And where have we been and how do we get this going again? And we also have Ace Riker, the public advocate and educator for sustainability. So, and we have 4 people in the coming in remotely, and a room full, great turnout of Columbia residents.
And there's a sign-in sheet if it gets passed around. It'd be great if you would put your name and
Name, email, and if you have a passion that you want to be involved with sustainability, just tell us. And I'll at that turn it over to Jessica.
Great, thanks, Mark, and
Let me
nice to
mute,
see you all. You all look
that.
pretty cool on my screen.
Oh, Jessica, hold on.
Yes. Oh,
You're mute. I don't know why. Hold on. Nope, that didn't work. Hold on.
sure thing.
Sounds great. Hold on, let's try this speaker. This mic.
How does that sound?
go back to. Hold on 1 second, Jessica.
Mhm.
Oh, whatever. Don't say something, right?
Click on that.
Yeah, we'll be back. I'll go check the wires coming out of the owl. Are they all working? Yeah. Good, and then let
Can you hear us?
I can hear
me
you.
try this. How about that? That might have done it.
What about now? Anything? I'll just talk and maybe you can hear me. Hopefully, testing. Oh, no.
You can't hear us.
I can hear you, yes. Yes.
All right, the floor is yours, Jessica.
Is this working? Can y'all hear me?
I'll hear you. We're all set.
All right, cool. Well, good to see you all. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm sorry I'm not with you. I hear I'm missing pizza. I hope that it's delicious. And I just want to take a minute and appreciate that today is the leap day. This is our bonus day of the year. It comes every 4 years. So thank you for spending it with us learning about sustainability. I'm going to share a screen. I've got some slides here. Let's see if this works. And I'm going to give a very high level overview of Sustainable CT. But I do want folks to feel free to ask any questions. If you have specific questions, you want to dive into anything in detail, we can certainly do that. For some of you in the room, you might be aware of Sustainable CT. For some folks, it might be a new program altogether. So if you are new to Sustainable CT, we are a statewide municipal certification program. Our goal is to help Connecticut cities and towns advance their overall sustainability. And we look really broadly at sustainability. So we're thinking about arts and culture. We're thinking about community connection, communications, transportation, affordable housing. We're thinking about land and natural resources. We're thinking about everything whole, where people can live, work, and play. At the core of our program, we have a menu of actions, which are sustainability best practices that you have the flexibility to pick from. We don't have a set menu for each town. You pick and choose what works for you, what speaks to your unique character as a town, and you can work on those actions of interest, get points, and you can use those for certification if certification is a goal. You also define what success looks like in our program. It might be that you want to get certified a certain level. It might also be you want to work on certain projects and we can help you with funding or free technical assistance to accomplish those goals. That's fine by us too. We want our program to be a value add. This is a voluntary free program for towns where you're really defining how you want to use and work with us. And we're here for you along that journey. It is a certification program though, so if certification is of interest, we are here. We'll be around to answer any questions as you move forward, help with any paperwork. And we want to spend time recognizing what's happening across Connecticut. There's a lot of amazing work that our cities and towns are doing, and we want to recognize that and celebrate it. So the program is made up of actions. Those are really the heart and soul of Sustainable CT. I mentioned we look very broadly at sustainability, so we are thinking about actions within these 13 different categories, and you can see they run the gamut of everything a town's thinking about: energy, infrastructure and operations, transportation, materials management, arts and culture, land and natural resources, and more. So within each one of these categories, there's a suite of actions that you can pick from to work on and do. Within each action, we have what you would need to do, what we would need to submit to us if you are seeking certification. But we also have other information that might be helpful. So we have different grants that might be available to support that particular action. There might be resources, guidance documents, programs or organizations across Connecticut that help with that particular thing that you're interested in looking at. So every action has an action description that really is a one-stop shop for everything you might need to do that particular activity. Just wanted to give a sense of some of the actions in the program. This is just a few of 77 big actions that have hundreds of sub-actions. Again, we wanted to make sure that the program will work for a town like Columbia. It would work for Ashford. It would work for Wyndham. It will work for Montville, Bridgeport, Hartford, everywhere in between. So just a couple examples: having agriculture-friendly practices, reducing energy use across municipal buildings, having healthy and sustainable food networks. These are just some things in the program that your town might be interested in working on. Or maybe you say, nah, that's not for me, and that's okay too. So if certification is a goal, we follow the Olympic standard here. We've got bronze, silver, and now a gold certification. This is something that was newly launched last year. And each one of these levels has certain requirements. We do try to keep it very broad, but there are some requirements. But again, flexibility is baked in at all levels of the program to make sure that every community has a place within Sustainable CT. I'm not going to get into the details here, but I can if folks have questions. Another option for towns is our climate leader designation. This is optional for bronze and silver communities and required for those seeking gold certification. And really what we've done is look at our entire list of actions and curated those that might reduce greenhouse gas emissions or build up a community's resilience to climate change impacts. And we say of this list, which is quite large, do whatever you want to get to 150 points and you are a climate leader. So right now we have 9 communities that are climate leaders in the state, and we look forward to working with more towns as they navigate that journey. This is what certification can look like. It's pretty fun. And actually we've updated our plaques because our first round of plaques only allowed for 3 certification slots and towns ran out of spots. So we've got towns now moving on. So we came up with a whole new plaque that has a lot more space to get those little tags that say you're certified in a given year, which is really exciting to see the growth across Connecticut. We have lots of different supports for towns who are moving through the program. Whether or not you're seeking certification, you want to just work on an action or 2 a year, we want to help you if that's of use. So we have, again, lots of supports. Everything we offer is no cost. We have equity coaches. You've got Ace in the room tonight. Hello, Ace. I think I saw you on this owl cam. Equity coaches are equity professionals that can work with your community one-on-one on our equity actions or just other things that have come up in your town. We have workshops and trainings throughout the year on various topics relating to, gosh, all of our actions. And as we get questions from towns, how do I do X, Y, or Z? We'll try to build a workshop or a webinar or training opportunity to answer those questions. And if you're wondering something, you really want to know how to make a pollinator pathway, it's likely others have that same question. So please reach out, email, call us up. We'll see what we can do to provide those opportunities so that we're all feeling equipped to move forward with the actions in our program. We also have many partners that we work with to provide free consulting support to towns to complete various actions in our program. Great opportunity to check things off, get things done. Town staff wear many hats. Commissioners, your volunteers, you have lives, jobs, and you're doing this extra volunteer work out of the goodness of your heart. We know that people are busy, so we can provide extra hands. We're happy to do so. And we've got lots of partners that can provide some really neat services to your town, like energy benchmarking support, climate resilience planning support, all sorts of things to move through and create a stronger community, but lightening the load on you. And speaking of extra hands, we also have a summer fellowship program where each summer we hire grad and undergraduate students who can work with towns across Connecticut. They're based at the councils of government's offices, but they work within the region, providing direct support to a community. So, they often help out towns that are seeking certification. It's usually that last push to get certified. They're helping with paperwork, documentation. But, if certification is not for now, and you've got some neat things going on that you just need extra hands, they're wonderful. And they work full time for us for the summer. The amount of tasks they can complete in a day is mind-boggling. So we appreciate any opportunities towns have to bring these young people into the fold and show them what a local government, what community volunteerism is all about. They're hungry for these experiences, and we appreciate the opportunity to give them a diverse experience as a fellow. So hopefully we're helping the fellows, but also helping you and your community as well. Another resource is our community match fund. So everyone in this room tonight, if you can look to your right and then look to your left, everyone you just saw, you're all eligible for our community match fund. Columbia is in our program registered. Every single person in town who has a project that has a public gain, no private good, no public gain. No, let me reverse that. That has a public gain, no private. Has a public good, no private gain. There we go. You're not making money off of it, but the public is benefiting. We want to sponsor those projects. It's a 1-to-1 matching program. We'll match up to $7,500, so a total project costs of $15,000. It's intended to be fast, flexible, and easy. The town's eligible, your commissions are eligible, you as an individual, your neighbors, nonprofits working in town, you're all eligible. The project has to align with one of our very diverse actions, and we want to get to yes. So you have an idea, even a kernel of an idea, call us up. We'll set up a meeting to discuss what you're thinking about. The application is writing a couple paragraphs, having a fun photo, a loose budget. I need $50 for shovels, $100 for tree plantings, and whatever, $1,000 for I don't know, a dump truck. Something very simple, high level. That's the whole application. It's not an application. You just write those things up. It becomes a project page on Patronicity, and we will help you with the crowdfunding. We'll teach you how to do that effectively and easily so you can raise that money. We'll write you a check and you're off and on your way. So we want these projects to go up. We want them to be things you want. And we have, since September of 29, invested almost $4 million to support about 300 community-led projects across the state. These are projects you can go out and see right now. I believe we have had one in Columbia. You can have many, many more. There can be multiple projects going on at the same time, as long as the project leaders are different, and a project leader can come back to the well and sponsor additional projects once they've wrapped up the project that they have. So if you're sitting in this room thinking, gosh, I have always wanted to do this thing, have a pollinator pathway, I've always wanted to make a trail a little bit better, I've always wanted to have unique signage around our town to support our historical assets. Great, let's talk, let's do it. Projects are up there, exciting, and really I think it's a cool way to involve many different people in your town. You don't need to be certified as a community to be eligible. You're registered, so you're good. Anyone can use this today, tonight, tomorrow, whenever. So I want to give a couple of ideas. These are some things that we've seen pollinator pathways. This happened in Cheshire. They put in the pollinator garden, they removed invasives, they had some signage to teach about that pathway. In Montville, an Eagle Scout was the project lead. This student, Tyler Lawton, put in a trail around Horton Cove in town. Suffield had a food waste diversion initiative where they purchased compost bins and gave them out to a pilot group of residents who began composting in their homes. Tree plantings, we see a lot of these. Windsor Locks did a tree planting program. It's a great way to bring people together. It's fun, hands-on, and you can see the result of your work immediately, which is quite gratifying. So just to wrap up here, Sustainable CT has been around since November of 2017. At this point, we have 131 towns that are registered in the program. So Columbia is on this map here. 58 towns are currently certified, and certification lasts the community 3 years. You can get recertified whenever and however many times you want. We have 9 climate leaders currently. Certified towns have completed more than 3,715 actions. So there's a tremendous amount of work, good work, amazing work that's happening out across the state. $3.7 million has been invested in community-led projects. So it's a 1-to-1 match. That would be half from us and half from people giving $5, $10, $15 for projects that they want to see in their neighborhoods. And hopefully a result of all this is more connected, inclusive, and resilient communities. So I want to thank our funders, our technical assistance partners, you all for being here tonight, and I will stop the share. And if folks have any questions, happy to take them.
Does anyone have questions for Jessica?
I do.
Yes, sir.
So for the different certification levels and the points that are needed,
She won't hear you, you'll have to speak up.
so for the different certification levels and the points that are needed, is it broken up by cohort group, by town size? And you normally see towns this size earning full certification based on some of the stuff that's needed?
It's not broken down by population size. But we have seen many towns even much smaller than Columbia achieve certification. I'm thinking of Ashford, Canaan, they also go by Falls Village, Cornwall, Goshen. So it has been done by some very, very small communities. And it's exciting to see different towns take different approaches to moving sustainable CT forward. Some have very active volunteer groups. Some have an existing committee or commission take the helm. Some have a, staff led. That's not usually the case in smaller towns where staff are stretched thin or there aren't many staff. But it's definitely doable, I think, from communities of all sizes. We've had many communities, big and small, move through the program. And we want to hear from towns as you're moving through. What's too hard? What's not working? What are your impressions on the action requirements? We make changes every year, little tweaks here and there to try to improve based on the feedback we hear. Because this is a program for towns, by towns. I'm not a town. I don't know what it's like to live your life, to have all the responsibilities a town government has. But we're certainly here to help and to learn, listen, and improve as we can.
Anybody else? Flo, do you want to just tell right in the beginning how the art council got started in
Sure.
sustainability? That was one of the
That was
success stories.
very successful. I think we started 3 years ago.
Actually, 2019.
19, okay.
Still during the pandemic.
And we got up, it was a learning experience for us. We weren't sure what we were doing and how we were gonna do it, but a whole bunch of artists got together and decided, okay, let's have an art show here. I started by asking one of our drivers at the senior center to hang her artwork at the senior center. So then we asked a photographer to hang from Columbia, and we kept doing that for a good 3 years. And then Ken Cordanaway got a plein air artist group together. And this year we had Meet the Artist at our senior center. and over 64 people attended. Which was an extreme surprise to us, because most people come, eat and leave. But no, we had music, we had 3 gentlemen playing, we had food for them, we charged them for the food, so that we wouldn't take the brunt of all the cost. And, it was a great success. People were really, they're still talking about it today.
So on that note, Ace, I'll give the floor to you and you could tell us some more about, where we can go, with sustainability and some of the harder categories.
Sure, yeah, definitely with navigating a little bit of my background, so Ace Ricker, I was born in Huntington, Connecticut, so Shelton. I know the area because I went to UConn, and actually, stayed in the area for a large period of time while I got my degree. I've been doing public advocacy and education work for the last 20+ years, to just have an understanding of my background. And fun fact, I was the training director for the men and women's basketball team sportscasters, so I traveled with them while I was at UConn, which was fun, but a lot of fun. And so with Sustainable CT, we really want to make sure that you have the resources to continue doing those art shows or to expand. I know we talked a little bit before we started about different pathways that you can make, and this can expand in many different avenues. So as an equity coach, I'm pretty much a sounding board to really kind of cultivate different ideas, thoughts that you in the community have wanted to see possibly really emerge, and possible things that you find that are obstacles in that. So one of those big things that I kind of, the food for thought is the intent versus the impact, because navigating with other towns, oftentimes there's an understanding of like, well, we want to assist with this part of the community that maybe we don't have as much outreach to, and that intent is there, and how the best way to impact. Because oftentimes, sometimes our best intent is not how we impact. Good example of that is one of the groups that I work with in another town. They were holding a community conversation on just equity. But one thing that they weren't thinking about is parents who want to be there. They didn't have any place for childcare at that point. The building they were looking to use was not handicap accessible. So we navigated those conversations beforehand, because I know it can be a lot navigating, like getting food ready and setting up a space. And so I'm the individual that kind of brings that soundboard and like, hey, did you think about that possibly in regards to that? So, and I love questions, so and there might be a lot of different things within the packets that you've received tonight, but there's definitely, we have each month, we have our community conversations as well. So we have multiple towns that come on to Zoom, and we get to answer any questions on that tab, navigating what equity you're looking to do in your community and what has worked for other towns as well. Another example, with one of the towns that I've worked with, they were working with their mobile home community to be more interactive because of the access that was limited to them. And so really bringing about community conversation and how to do that. They wanted to do survey, but not every single person within that community had accessibility to a computer. So they had individuals from the community walking around doing surveying, or had surveys that they could pick up at their local library. So I'm kind of the person that adds up that background to, hey, did you think about that? And like, no, that's a great idea. Don't think that's a bad idea. Where do we want to go with it? So that's where I'm.
That was one of our struggles as we were starting up.
Yeah, oftentimes it's like, wait, where do I even start? Because maybe you haven't done it before. And it's really, I always say, like, we're all life learners. When I was talking earlier, we're life learners. We're expanding, we're growing, we're learning different things. And if you have an idea, like, run with it. Because, and we'll assist in that with all the resources, with equity coaches, with the fellows that I've worked with our fellowship group. We want to make sure that those dreams they have, whether doing an art show, whether making new paths and trails, or access in different ways to different materials or whatnot, we want to make sure we can navigate that.
We're hoping to have a woodworking exhibit, in the future. We have, a woodworking group at the senior center they're just incredible. But they're also, members of the Mystic Woodworking or Carvers Association. So we're hoping to do that and coordinate that with them. The biggest, thing is funding. Is getting the funds, and we're not good at that yet.
And that's one of the things, especially like what Jessica was saying, the match program. I actually, prior to becoming an equity coach, worked with another organization in West Hartford that did the match program and actually got the $7,500 matched with bringing in youth support and equity groups for young teenagers and young adults. So that was what I navigated prior to being an equity coach, and that's something that's an excellent resource. And there's not all these hard in and out things that you have to navigate. It's very simple and it's not intimidating, and you get assistance throughout that process. So you're not just like, good, see you in a couple months, have a good time with that. We want to make sure that you can feel confident to reach out to us in any type of capacity. Have anything else you want to add to that, Jessica?
I do. So we have funded art festivals and art events. Arts and culture is one of the categories in our program. So that sounds like in pretty good alignment with our community match fund, but we would love to explore more if you'd like.
No, I think in one regard, were there certain ideas that Columbia had as a town that they've since kind of the pause during the beginning of the pandemic and so forth? Different ideas that have been brought up, different ideas, how has it been looking in like conversation thus far?
I have one. Have we ever partnered with the state in state parks? Because we have Monopond State Park, which was a small state park, and then the town partnering with the state and Trust for Public Lands added another 400 acres. So it's a 600-acre state park. New Friends of Monopond State Park has just been created. They're a nonprofit. And the state just gave a large grant to develop a walking and biking master plan in Monopond State Park. So that is underway now, but there's still so much to do with, keeping out motorized vehicles, and I don't know, Ann might wanna, Ann done it.
Just to build on that, one of our biggest stumbling blocks in that project is where do you park?
Yeah.
Right.
In parking.
Right.
And we have roadside parking, but that's not safe. And if you have mobility issues, roadside parking will not do it. And so that's a big stumbling block for us.
And have you navigated conversations into where there would possibly be, or was that not granted with the property that was given?
It was not granted. Most of the property was inaccessible. So it's accessible through the airline trail. And most of the parking is outside of Columbia.
Outside.
So you could walk in. And there is one parking lot that the state maintains at the pond. But it's not that big.
But to access the newer part,
You can't get there from here.
you can't get there
There's a wetlands in the way.
There's a wetlands in the way, okay.
unless you swim.
Yeah.
Which is a challenge.
Which is a challenge. Jessica, have we had any individuals with expanding for like trails, navigating parking situations previously?
Yes, absolutely. We've had towns improve access to their open space. This actually sounds like it would be a wonderful equity toolkit where you are, and that's a process that ACE sort of can help a town with, where you think about what are people's needs. And you mentioned that the mobility challenges people might have, the lot size, how many people can be there. What do people need to get into this park? And the best way to find out is just to ask them. And that's really the equity requirement of our program, is to talk to people and figure out how you can help make their life easier with a certain action in mind. that the state owns the land might make things a little bit more challenging. So the instances that I can think of, the towns have owned the property. But we do work closely with DEEP, and on our board of directors, we have someone who's the municipal concierge to help towns sort of liaise with DEEP and understand permitting and kind of talk through, and they can bring together the right folks at DEEP for a conversation, which sometimes, I used to work for DEEP. It's a big black box of who you should talk to. But if you're interested, I'd be glad to connect folks from Columbia with this individual so you can
Yes,
start to
please.
discuss more.
We would like that, Jessica, please.
And
So
Mark,
that-
should it be with you and Jennifer?
Yes,
What are we agreeing to?
the deep concierge to help us navigate the state bureaucracy.
Yes, that would be assisting in finding where you could be able to have secure, accessible, area. And that's where with Jessica and some of our individuals we have as resources, sometimes it's kind of, we have all these silos and then we just kind of have to talk it out. And then we're like, oh, actually, I have a resource that you could use. And that's something that, because it can be hard, you're like, well, you're not have parking, we got all this great land now and you can't even access it because we don't have park. And so we see those hurdles, but us as sustainable CT and me as an equity coach, we'll help you get through those, whether you have to break through them or kind of like catapult you to that resource. But we want to assist in that.
And Jessica, we have some representatives in the audience that want safer walking markings or indications to protect biking and hiking and walking and baby strollers on some of our busy roads.
Mm-hmm.
So we are reaching out to DOT, but that's a bureaucratic process, and I didn't know if sustainability had any inroads to make those as a focus to some of our trying to connect the dots between our library and our lake and things like that.
I don't have a DOT liaison for you, but there's definitely actions within our program with regard to creating more complete streets. So the streets aren't necessarily just for the cars, bikers, walkers, people use the street in different ways. So there's a whole action about that with best practices and also towns who have done this type of work. I can't think of the town specifically that has done it, but some towns thinking outside the box, maybe it's not a sidewalk that's interesting, maybe it's a trail is not the right word, but a path along the road. So it's on like the grassy part where they're pathways to connect different portions of towns rather than sidewalks necessarily. Sometimes roads are just too narrow to accommodate. So definitely an action within the program. Our community match fund can support projects like that, though I would assume that those projects might be a bit more expensive than we have funding for. It's a $15,000 project cap on the match fund, so it might not be the best fit. But we also have a grants portal that anyone can go to, and you can sign up for alerts and action areas of interest. So if the complete streets and transportation is of interest, you can sign up for alerts. So when we see funding opportunities for sidewalks or putting in traffic calming devices, you can get alerted that those are up and on available through entities like DOT or the Federal Highway Administration or others. So we try to pull in all that information into one spot. Another thing that we have seen a lot of towns do are walk audits, pedestrian or bicycle walk audits, where you pick a very small segment of town that people are using and use it, walk, pick a day, pick a week, and have different types of users walk and share their experiences. It's really amazing what you can learn when you are on foot on a street. Are there curb cuts? Are people driving like maniacs? Can you see around a corner? Is the right of way very narrow in particular areas? The sidewalk crumbly? If you're pushing a stroller, your experience will be very different than if you're a fast walker or maybe you're a slow walker and you could benefit from benches. At any rate, those walk audits, they're wonderful things that towns can do. They're kind of fun way to bring people together. And you can come up, you have a report that you do afterwards. It assesses this particular stretch of road with real perspectives that would be an excellent preamble to a grant application. We know this road has these limitations. These are the limitations from all these different types of users. As such, we're proposing these changes. We've seen a lot of towns do walk audits, and they are, very straightforward, doable, and come up with a very usable product.
And one thing with navigating, especially like fundraising, with the grants, it's stuff that your community is gonna see fold back into it. So they're gonna see the pathway that you did that audit on is going to be funded in some way when you start funding or you do the grant program, they're gonna see that result. Cause oftentimes like, well, I hear about this project and I'm not sure if I'm gonna see anything actually implemented from it or have any visual affirmation of that. And when you're doing it, you're actually seeing that affirmation. We've had like the pollination trails, that people have done, they get to see that. And we hear the excitement and we have the towns hear from their community like, oh, we did see this actually happen. And we've had more of a impact in that regard because of those visual monuments, those moments that the town sees and the community of the town sees, that it really kind of builds them around. It's like, yeah, I'll give you that other $10 I was gonna spend on my coffee this week. Or I'll give you this and that because there's a visual there. And oftentimes, especially with like this pathway audit, they will see that visual. So the person who's with a stroller is not going to be like, oh, I'm doing moguls as I'm going down. They're like, oh, they refixed the pathway there. And so there are these visual things that actually really motivate even more conversation and more information that you get from your community.
Jessica, in one of your early slides, you mentioned something about agriculture. Could you, either one of you, expand on what you've done around agricultural projects in some of the other towns?
Sure. So to be fair, we don't really do the projects. We set the standard and towns do the projects and submit that to us. So gosh, I could pull up the action and just show you some of the examples, but for every action we have all the towns that have done a really bang up job, a great job at that particular activity, and we list it, and you can go and drill down into what they've done. So seeing things like having their communities be right to farm, having transfer of development rights, having farmers forums. We've seen towns lease municipal property where it's appropriate to farmers. Maybe they've got a green or some space that could be hayed, or they could have cows or goats grazing. So there are many different ways that towns are supporting agriculture in their community. Those are the biggies that come to mind.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, also having farmland acquisition funds. That's another thing we've been seeing more of.
You know, in a lot of the things you've gone over, Columbia has already done that. We have programs to do that.
Mhm.
We have an open space plan. We've purchased lands. We've looked at our woodlands. We've looked at ruins and are putting funds into recovering ruins of our historical sites. We gave the farmers recently a tax abatement on their properties and stuff, if they're selling and making some money. You know, we've done a lot of things. I look at this list here and it's a struggle for us to do things that we haven't done. And to be honest with you, for us to raise our taxes we're already raising our taxes every day to cover things that are put on us by the state. And also, you know, good things we have to do for our citizens. We're adding more into it with some of these programs that, you know, may benefit a few or may benefit a lot, but we seem to benefit most people who live in Columbia if they decide to get outdoors, breathe the fresh air, walk a little bit. We're the only place in the United States, I believe, that has the airline trail and the green pathways that meets. You know, so we have great paths. We have farmland, we have open space, we have good rec park, we have, we're trying to spend $6 million on purifying the air in our schools. We do a lot of things, so.
Yeah, that's
even
wonderful.
last time we were doing this, we were close to some sort of certification until the pandemic hit. So do we get to claim that stuff and start from there?
Yes,
Do we have to
you
start from
do.
there?
Yeah, we credit the past work that's happened. We know no one's starting from scratch. You've done a lot of amazing work and we respect and honor that. And in the actions, we'll tell you what you would need to do to sort of validate. So let's say you have a policy from, I don't know, 1980. That's still your policy on the books. Just tell us that's still a policy. Give us a copy of the policy. So we do want you to have that foundation and get the credit for that work that's happening. Our actions, we've tried to tailor them so that you're entering at a certain spot, and it sounds like you're entering from pretty high up. So we've tried to have our actions so that there's another rung for you to go to, if it makes sense, if it's something that will benefit the town, the residents, the businesses, and if it's of interest. And if it's not, and you want to be where you're at, that's great too. And we'll still give you the credit for that level. And this is where our fellows can be particularly helpful to towns. You know what you've done. Our fellows will teach them our program really well. You have a conversation, you give them the documentation, and they can work the magic to get it uploaded, because that's not the fun part. You're doing the work. You want to do more, get out there and make the community better. You don't necessarily want to be documenting it all, and we understand that. So we've got this support in the summer months to help you with that part of the certification process. Again, if certification is a goal. Yeah, so you get that credit for past work, and we love it. We love seeing what towns are up to and learning from you. We love to feature towns that have done really neat things as well in webinars and trainings, because you're selling how to do this project. Again, you're the experts.
Great. Anybody else?
Oh, yeah, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the inside cover of the equity toolkit, it says to be eligible for certification, this toolkit has to be applied to at least one initiative. And then it shows 5 different phases. Can you just walk us through what these 5 phases will look like in a town like Columbia, or comparable towns?
I can, or Ace, do you want to?
Either one, doesn't matter.
Do we rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah.
Here, I'll start us off, and Ace, you can fill us in. So the 5, it's really, if you go on that toolkit, I think it's page 13. So they'll walk you through a bunch of steps, but page 13 has the 5 questions that we're hoping to get to. And that's who lives in your town? Who actually lives there? And there's lots of demographic data that we can point you to. You can literally copy paste it. We want to know who's there, ages of people, races of people, socioeconomic status. Do people own their homes? You have renters. What does the town look like? The next question, we're going to ask you to connect with people and tell us, how did you connect with them? So if you were to say, have a walk audit, this is a very popular action to pair with the equity toolkit. How did you connect with people? How did you invite people to participate in the walk audit? Did you put out information on Facebook? Did you go to the community center? Did you go to the senior center? Did you reach out to the churches? Connect with people. We're going to ask you next to tell us what you're learning from those connection points. So in the case of a walk audit, we had differently abled walkers. We had people who had strollers. We had people who were slower walkers, faster walkers, people who were in wheelchairs. We had people with little kids. We had 90-year-olds. We had all sorts of people. Someone maybe who's visually impaired walking this stretch of road. And what we heard from them was there aren't any curb cuts. There's a slight hill and there's no rumble strips to let us know that the hill is coming. We heard that shoulders don't fit in the side. Whatever we heard is what we heard. And then we'll ask you to tell us how you used what you learned from those conversations in the action outcome. So if it's that walk audit again, we heard all of these things and we put it in the report of our walk audit. So we heard these things and we've documented it in the report. And then the 5th thing is to tell us how you will refine, revisit, and improve. So maybe, and I mean, there's no right or wrong answer for this one. You might say, well, we picked a Saturday to do the walk audit. We're thinking about maybe offering this on a Monday because traffic on a Monday morning might look a lot different than traffic on a Saturday. So we want to get a more broad perspective of the conditions of the roadway. or we put this event out there and no kids came, so we're gonna do a more outreach in the future to the PTA, whatever it is. Again, no right or wrong answer. But what we're really looking for is for you to look in town and look at who's not usually at the table when you're having conversations, who's not here tonight. For whatever reason, there are people who might not have the time to be on a committee. There might be people who are working in a different shift, so they can't come to the evening meetings that towns hosts. You know, connect with people and make sure that the things that you're doing, really reflects their wants and needs, and that we're spending money and time on items that will impact people positively. Here's just a hypothetical this could be. So it could be, let's say a town, I'm just making something up right now, has $5,000, and they say, gosh, we've got a lot of young families in town. We're gonna use this money. We're gonna buy a $5,000 worth of diapers, put them at the food bank, have this diaper bank. People are really gonna benefit from it. It's a great intention. Really think people are gonna need this. But maybe if you just ask parents, what do you need? Or ask the town, what do you need? You might have learned they really need childcare after school, or maybe they need, I don't know, free lunch, or people just wanted to have a party, or they want, I don't know, I always make up something weird, like hot dogs on Tuesday. Like what is it that people really want or need? And then do that thing. So it's really about ground truthing and making sure that what we're doing, even though well-intended, is just reflective and responsive to what we're hearing from the community. So that's the equity toolkit at a really high level. And because every town has done it, we have many examples of what towns have done and how they've applied it to various different actions within the program.
And to add to what Jessica was saying, like the several different programs that Columbia has already pretty much been implementing and continue to implement, when we're looking at that, you can continue with that and getting credits, and also the way of restructuring that. So like sometimes with younger individuals, one of the things is I have a lot of individuals in one of the towns that don't immediately go to the library to pick out a book. They want to do e-readings and e-learning. So that was something that became an impact from, they had a group of young individuals come to a conversation. They did it through Zoom because that's how they want to do it. And they're like, well, how can we assist you in utilizing the library? Because we're seeing a lower amount of individuals come directly to the library to gain materials. How can we implement that? And so with that conversation and with using these 5 steps, they found, okay, we are evolving the way we're going to do outreach to a certain segment of the community that we've seen a decline in. And it's so that all these amazing things that your town is already implementing, it's the kind of evolving that wheel. How can it expand in some ways? What places maybe have needed a little altering or tweaking and so forth? And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with what's being implemented, seeing possibly what other individuals may have in those ideas to expand them. And the kind of ironic thing I used was when we look at, especially with technology, one of the things that with technology, the expansion of dial-up to then going into, we have these things that have helped and assisted us. Now we can call someone up across the other side of the world and FaceTime with them. Same thing in regards to having the food for thought conversations on, you had the art show, and this has made an impact and is still making that impact. So next time, maybe if you bring like, we want to see that again. Because it brought empowerment, it brought uplifting, it brought people in the community that didn't know certain other individuals. Having a conversation of like, hey, we had an amazing time at this event and it impacted us as a community positively. What would we like to see for the next time we do it? And now you're bringing in woodworkers, maybe some iron, people that work with steel, sculpting, like those individuals may see at first like, oh, well, I don't work with wood creation, I work with pottery or glass or whatnot. And it's not saying, oh, this isn't a great idea and it didn't work well. It's like, well, now we can expand, and it's just enriching that, because you're gonna see more people kind of come into the community, because sometimes the question is like, well, I don't think I fit in this skill set, so I guess I'm just not gonna take part. And that's not that's not your intention in any way, and that's where we use these 5 specific statements to continue that conversation and continue that, just like with Jessica and I and the rest of our equity team. Right now, we are building, one of the things that we talked about was the toolkit with this packet can somewhat kind of take in different directions. Everyone's perception of it is kind of unique, so we want to like construct a video that kind of breaks it down a little bit more. And that's how we want to build access and understanding. As well as when we do community conversations, us at Equity Coaches, well, what else do you want us to do in regards to that outside of being a soundboard? And so we are expanding as well in some regards, not looking for certification, but in regards to requirements and getting gradations and so on.
Great. Well, we still have more pizza to eat, I think. And you're welcome to stay and talk. And any other questions?
So maybe this is a good question to end on then. So what's the process then? So is it, we're talking a lot about community conversations, so is it initiated, maybe Flo, you have some information on this too, so like, was there just an initial conversation where we decided we wanted to do something? And then there was a committee that was created and that works towards that goal? Is that basically
Yeah,
from a
the Arts
procedural
Council,
standpoint?
yeah.
Okay.
The Arts Council was created
Okay,
for that, and there's 5 of us on. No, there's probably 7 of us on the Arts Council, and we kind of flopped in the beginning, because we had a showcase for musicians, and only a few people attended. But then we geared up again, and, got more artists involved. And Kim really did a great job getting the plein air group together, because they went from site to site in Columbia painting. And there was one photographer there too, he would photograph the painters, and we put a display up on, you know, in the, show for that.
That was, due to the Missouri Historic, the gardening tour. We were
Oh,
able to
right, the
get
gardening
back onto
tour.
that one.
Yeah, that's right, that's where it
That's
really
what
started, you're
started.
right, yeah. But you got the artists together too for this. So it's like one hand helped the other. The big thing is advertising too. I did put it in the Hartford Current. I put it in the Chronicle. We tried to advertise around town. We put flyers everywhere. Thanks to Andrea and a few others. But the biggest problem is trying to get the funds to do these events.
Well, when you look at sustainability, one of the next steps is to create a sustainability team.
Yeah.
We had a team, that team dissolved years ago, during COVID. But with the sustainability team, one member has to be a municipal official. You know, that could be out of his office, but what we need is the volunteers to organize
Yeah.
and then spin off into subgroups to attack
Right.
whatever they're passionate about with the different categories.
Yeah.
And really, that team is the focus of the energy of documentation and organization. And it's not employee run. We'll just want
I
to
know.
reiterate that. Our plates are full, Jen and I, and different members of different boards and commissions, but a sustainability team could be part of different boards and commissions, but I think you need a big enough volunteer pool that the energy keeps it going and then spins off into whatever.
I just want to point out that probably the youngest person here is 40. We're missing an entire demographic. There are no students, there are no kids. And that's why we have trouble with publicity, because I don't know how to use my phone.
And like that's a food for thought, so that's like, okay, how can we get the younger demographic of Columbia to engage in that regard.
Well, we actually had some young groups at the event.
Yeah.
We had a young artist at the event too, who displayed. And that's like word of mouth, if somebody knew somebody and said, why don't you show your artwork? So, and what we're looking to do is go to the school and say, okay, can we have the band play for lunch for our lunch group? So that's what we're trying to do, but it's time consuming. We need the help.
And that's something like you were indicating, everyone in this room, you're like, everyone's plates are very, full. We're all in a lot of ways have a lot of stuff on our plates.
Yeah.
And in regards to this is where you publish and network and see who else has maybe that extra 20 minutes they can add to their plate for that week. And then you have 10 people that can add 20 minutes, that can be very heavy in impact.
Mhm.
And one big thing, like you have young individuals who specifically were at this art show that brought some of their art, reaching back out to those networks, saying like, hey, we saw you in this space, it was a great time, we interacted, we navigated conversation. We wanna know, what else would you like to see as the younger, like, population of Columbia?
Right.
What have you not seen? One of the things I heard earlier was, I love a good farmer's market, so hopefully that'll come back. But like that, when I was at UConn, I would travel all around with a group of young students because they liked to see the interaction. And sometimes there's this intimidation factor because they're like, well, where are we at in the demographics?
Yeah.
And so these are different ways you can implement that. And if you do have questions and you're kind of puzzling over how to mold those sentences, you can navigate those back and navigate them to us. We're not just gonna be like, hi, it was nice meeting you, bye. Like, I will still be here, Jessica will still be here. And like, I'll be back around, so when conversation is brought up or something very particular that you wanna talk about, like, we're happy to have those conversations again, whether in person or online or whatnot.
Rhonda?
So a sustainable CT committee or group, whatever. They would have to do the equity component for a chosen action, or they have to use the equity component to figure out what action they wanna do. I'm a little chicken and the egg trying to figure that out.
No, you can, so, you wanna answer that? Yeah, Jessica.
It's up to you. We have had towns go in totally open-ended and sort of figure out what action they want to apply the toolkit to. And some towns had a project in mind and they just went forward with it. Just hearing you speak, it sounds like there's some good fits already with maybe the walk audit or perhaps the parking lot access to open space. That's an action in our program. Improving access, putting in something like a parking lot. Absolutely. And if it doesn't materialize, you're not ready to get there this year, maybe it takes a little while with DEEP. Assessing a portion of open space in town for accessibility is an action as well. And you could, again, just invite different kinds of users in town to say, this park is great, but I need more benches, I need a bathroom, I need this. And you don't have to do those things, but just assess what people might need for down the road as funding comes up or as opportunities arise, to enhance these areas so that they're more user-friendly for everyone in town. So I think you could go either way, whatever really makes the most sense to you. And we'd be glad to brainstorm with you as you're moving forward. You've got ACE, you have us. We're here for you as much as you want. We can have conversations every day, or we can hear from you the certification deadline, or whatever. We are 100% around, and we can also connect you with other towns who have done similar work if you're interested. We're really trying to create a network, a supportive network where we can all be learning with and from each other.
Yeah, so you saw some of the examples that Jessica did on the slide, and if that would work as an example for the committee here, that doesn't mean just the committee that is collected has to do the work. That very much so expands to the community, and we want you to navigate that through the community. One of example of getting interaction from people that you're like, well, we don't wanna have to plan a big thing. They posted to have a bowling night, and they made a short survey that everyone got and handed it at the end of the night, so they all got to meet new people. And then someone at the end of the night collected the surveys, and they were able to get some of that feedback from the community. It can be fun, it doesn't have to be taunting, like, I have an exam for you to figure it out. We don't want that in regards, and implementing that, we have many examples like Jessica has done, but we also, not every town connects with those examples. And so you can expand the way you want to, and I know sometimes that can be hard, it's like, write me an essay, you're like, well, give me some close, more content. And we don't wanna entirely do that, because then that may cut individual access to some people's ideas and so forth. And that's why, like, I as a sounding board and Jessica as a sounding board, we want you to think about what you wanna see within Columbia, because you're here every day.
And just one more thing, there might be departments in town that apply the equity toolkit process without even knowing it. It's just how they do business. It could be, we've seen a lot in social services department, youth services, the library. These are typically public facing departments, offices, groups in town that they've typically been extremely responsive to what they're hearing. They're actively seeking feedback and using that feedback to improve their services. So it might be worth exploring with those types of players in the community. What are you working on right now? And see where they're at. And this could be a case where it's underway, maybe a little bit more is needed, or maybe it's good. It's a solid example. And that's a very high possibility as well.
I know Jessica, on that example, the library did come to the town and they like to run their programs in the summer for the little kids in our big Yeoman's Hall, and Little Mermaid was dancing up there, and it was the hottest day of summer. Some of the kids almost passed out. So some of the moms came to town and said, can you put air conditioning in Yeoman's Hall? And we just turned it on yesterday. We now have air conditioning.
Programs that cost me a lot.
Actually, pay for that air conditioning, so we thank the federal government. Jessica,
pay taxes.
I know, Jessica, Ace, thanks very
One
much
pocket to the other.
for coming out tonight, we appreciate it,
Yeah, no worries.
and
Yeah, thank you.
great.
Sounds good. Looking
Thank
forward to working with y'all.
So everybody who came out tonight, I know you all came out for different reasons, learn a little bit more, get back involved in this, because I asked you to, or, Mark told me to, and, whatever reason you came out for, I think we were enlightened very well. And as you look at those items in the list of things to do, if you had a highlighter and checked off things in Columbia that we already do to some degree, I'm telling you, we're at probably 35% of them. And that's a low number, because I'm involved in a lot of those things. Emergency plan, energy plans, things that the normal citizens go home every night aren't involved in. There's a lot of things in there that the Board of Selectmen and the town administration is involved in. But the other things like having a farm, doing things with farmers, getting out there, having energy audits, making yourself do compost and everything else. We have a lot of things we can already check off or are partially checked off already. So I hope you've learned a little bit. Spread the word. It's not all about some things that we may be concerned about, but it's a lot about some things that some of us are concerned about. So whether it's clean air, clean water, knowing people, doing right by people, having people get out. The only thing about your story about the kids who didn't want to use the library, all you did was give them another way to stay home, in my view. I'd rather get them out and say, you know what, we'll find an oak tree and you can all turn away from each other, but share a story as it goes around. You don't have to look at each other, but you learn to communicate, and maybe it loosens up a little bit where you become friends. That's what I would have done. But we all have different ideas. So thank you very much for coming out tonight.
I think if people are interested in being on the sustainable team, the creation of it, please let me know. And so we can at least start getting that team put together. And start meeting and starting the process. And we can, if we've got enough people who are volunteering who want to be part of this, then we can kick it off and start setting up some times to meet and working on these different actions.
And the irony of that story was that that group that came together, they actually meet now in public. Because unfortunately, because of the pandemic, a lot of young individuals don't have the soft skills that are there and the anxiety base. So now there's 13 kids that come to the public library there and they do D&D, which I don't know very much about.
Dungeons and Dragons?
But no, but that was the thing where I was like, yeah, because when I was there, just go up trees and go to creeks and didn't have the navigating of like tablets and all these video game simulations. And that was like the first step that I would think, well, we're still closing them off. And now we got to another step where, okay, they talk to each other for umpteenth, it was like 4 or 5 months.
Right.
And now they see each other because we didn't navigate that. We would just run into each other at school and if you liked each other, you liked each other or you avoided each other. And so it's the different ways of how we process many things, which I've had to navigate with some of the new terminology and like drip and I like certain things because I assist with a youth group for another nonprofit. So it's always evolved, always evolved.
Good. Well, thank you everyone for coming and just make sure, give your emails and phone numbers to Jen with, get you all back together.
Jen,